The sound of my father's coffee mug slamming against the kitchen counter made me flinch, but it was his words that cut through me like ice water. "You think you're some kind of saint? You're just a leech with a martyr complex." His face contorted with rage as he jabbed a finger toward me. "You live under this roof for free, and now you're lecturing us like we owe you something." My throat constricted as I stood paralyzed, the refrigerator door still open behind me, cold air spilling out against my back. The grocery receipt in my hand, $278.43, paid from my nearly empty checking account, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked to my mother sitting at the table, then to my sister, then my brother, 3 pairs of eyes that refused to meet mine. No one spoke. No one moved. After 7 years of paying their mortgage, utilities, groceries, and emergencies, I had finally asked for help with the burden. Their response wasn't just silence, it was contempt. My name is Rachel. I'm 30 and a graphic designer. This is the story of how I reclaimed my worth after my family tried to erase me. For 7 years, I had been the silent backbone of our family. When my dad lost his job after his company shut down, I stepped in without hesitation. At 23, I was juggling retail work during the day and freelance design projects at night, just to keep our house from collapsing into financial ruin. My brother Oliver was in college, my sister Veronica still in high school, Mom emotionally overwhelmed, and Dad. He never once said thank you. I paid for everything. Rent, electricity, medical emergencies, groceries, birthday dinners. If it came with a bill, I handled it. I never complained, not even when my savings dwindled to double digits, or when I skipped dinner to eat cheap noodles in my room so they wouldn't notice. I kept hoping that one day they'd see me as more than their personal ATM, as a daughter, a sister, a human being who also needed care and recognition. That Sunday morning, I had just paid off the last of Dad's credit card debt from an old hospital bill. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time he'd acknowledge what I'd done. Instead, when I gently suggested we start budgeting differently because I couldn't keep covering everything alone, he erupted. After his outburst, I stood frozen, heart hammering against my ribs. The kitchen suddenly felt both too small and impossibly vast. I waited, 1 second, 2, 3, for someone, anyone, to defend me. To say, period. Wait, she's the reason we still have a home. But my mother stared at her hands. My sister glanced up from her phone, then back down. My brother simply shrugged and returned to his cereal. I was invisible. 7 years of sacrifice, and I was invisible. That night, I packed a single suitcase. I didn't announce my departure or cause a scene. I simply left, driving across town to my friend Kristen's apartment, where she had offered me her tiny guest room. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. Then I did something I'd never done before. I cut the financial cord. The auto pay on the mortgage, canceled. The utilities, discontinued. The grocery delivery app I'd subscribed to on their behalf, deleted. For the first time in 7 years, they would have to figure things out without me. 2 weeks later, my phone exploded with missed calls and messages. At first, guilt clawed at my insides every time I silenced another call from Mom or ignored a text from Oliver asking, "Why are the lights off?" Years of conditioning had taught me that my pain came last, that no matter how much I was hurting, their comfort took priority. But something had cracked inside me that Sunday. This time, I let my silence speak for me. I watched from a distance as the consequences of my absence unfolded. The fridge stayed empty. The water got cut off. The car payments defaulted. Mom posted vague Facebook statuses asking for prayers during this difficult time. But no one mentioned my name. I had been erased from their story the moment I stopped serving a purpose. 3 weeks after I left, an unknown number flashed on my phone. I answered out of instinct. "You're being dramatic," Veronica hissed without preamble. "Mom and Dad are struggling and you're out there pretending to be some victim." I took a deep breath, my knuckles white around the phone. "You mean the victim who's been paying for your Wi-Fi, your lunch orders, and your online clothes for the last 4 years?" The silence that followed was deafening. "You knew," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "You all knew what I was doing. You just didn't care." She hung up. That night, I broke down, not from regret, but from grief. grief over a family that had never truly seen me as more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I wrote a letter I never intended to send. You called me a leech, Dad, but I was the one keeping your roof over your head. You called me selfish, but when was the last time anyone asked if I was okay? When I stopped paying, you didn't just lose money. You lost the one person who actually cared enough to hold everything together while you all treated me like I didn't matter. 2 months passed. I moved out of Kristen's guest room and into a tiny studio apartment downtown that I could finally afford with my new job. I secured a better remote position with a design agency and finally started spending on myself. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. I bought real food. I went to therapy. I slept without waking up to financial anxiety. Then came the email from my father. Subject line, urgent, please read. It was a wall of desperate text explaining they were being evicted, blindsided by the bills I used to cover, and if I could just help out this once, it would be enough to keep them afloat. There was no apology, just desperation. I didn't respond. A few days later, a letter arrived at my workplace, an address I had never given my family. Somehow, they had tracked it down through a mutual friend who worked at the same company. Inside was something that made my heart stop. A copy of my father's retirement insurance policy. My name had been intentionally removed 2 years ago. The reason listed, not reliable. Not reliable. After 7 years of being their financial life support, I was not reliable. My hands trembled as I stared at the document. They hadn't just taken me for granted. They had actively erased me behind my back while still accepting my money. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to reclaim my narrative. Fate handed me the opportunity in the most unexpected way. Taylor, a college friend I hadn't spoken to in years, texted me. Hey, you know that duplex your parents live in? My uncle's firm just bought the building. They're planning to renovate and flip it unless you're interested in taking over the lease. Want me to put you in touch? I stared at the message, hardly believing what I was reading. Taylor knew about my family situation because we'd stayed connected on social media, where I occasionally vented about them. The very roof I had kept over their heads was now on the market, and I had the chance to be the one holding the keys. I smiled, not out of spite, but because karma had finally knocked, and this time, I answered. I took the meeting. The building was in rough shape. My family had neglected the basics just as they had neglected me. But I saw potential. With my saved money from the past few months of my better-paying job, good credit, and a small business loan I qualified for, I bought the building under an LLC, no traceable name, no link to my personal identity. The process took about 3 weeks to complete. To them, I was gone. But I wasn't gone. I was watching. The day the ownership legally changed hands, I received a voicemail from Mom. She was crying. We got a notice, she whimpered. They're selling the building. We're going to lose the house. I don't know what to do. That was the house I had paid rent for when no one else could. The house I kept from foreclosure with my 2 AM design jobs, overdraft charges, and skipped meals. And now she was crying about losing it. It didn't break me. It calmed me. I sent a formal notice from the LLC, giving them 60 days to vacate. 3 days later, they showed up outside my new place. Not my old apartment, not Kristen's guest room, my studio condo, which they had tracked down through my cousin Emma, who I'd told about my new address. She later apologized for revealing my location when they claimed it was an emergency. My father stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, as if nothing had ever happened. My mother looked worn and confused. Oliver, who hadn't spoken to me in months, held a grocery bag as if it were some kind of peace offering. Can we come in? Dad asked flatly. No, I said, standing in my doorway. Look, he started, his tone somewhere between annoyed and desperate. We're going through a lot. You've made your point, but family helps each other. You owe us that much. I laughed quietly, but not kindly. I owe you? I gave you everything for 7 years. You threw me out and called me a leech. Mom reached out, eyes brimming. We were stressed. We didn't mean it. Did you mean taking my name off the retirement policy? I asked, my voice steady. Was that also just stress? Their faces dropped. They hadn't expected me to know about that. I know everything. I continued, looking each of them in the eye. You made me the backup plan, the silent mule, and when I got tired, you tried to erase me. Well, now I've erased you from my accounts, my payments, and my future. They stood in stunned silence. But I'll do one better, I added. I'm not kicking you out. I'm offering you a choice. Dad's brow furrowed as I continued. You can stay in the house under one condition. You'll pay full market rent, on time, with no special treatment, the same deal I'd give a stranger. Or you can leave. It was quiet for a beat too long. You're bluffing, Oliver said, his voice lacking conviction. I stepped back into the doorway and held up the new keys. These say otherwise. Eventually, they left. No shouting, no begging, just stunned silence. I had taken back everything on my own terms. Weeks passed. They didn't choose to stay. They moved in with my Aunt Julia, who had always looked down on me for never settling down. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they weren't happy there, but they never reached out again. 6 months later, they moved to another state entirely, and we haven't spoken since. Our relationship was permanently severed that day on my doorstep. I kept the duplex, renovated it, and turned the second unit into a quiet, creative retreat where I painted, read, and finally breathed without tension, pressing on my chest. The rent from the tenants paid for my peace. The silence paid for my healing. One day, I framed that voicemail Mom left me, not to gloat, but as a reminder. I am not a leech. I am not disposable. I am not a backup plan. I am the foundation they stood on, and now I'm the one standing tall. And when people ask me if I ever miss my family, I smile and say, number. I finally built one with boundaries, grace, and my name on the deed. Full circle. All mine. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.